now I am going, fix my hair. It was really so much fun to write, and I kind of like how the conversation evolved, and it ended up being like a two guys conversations, which I don't think I've ever had two guys just talking to each other in any of my stories. Yes, me. You are up there. Hello dears, Natalie Locke here with episode 34 of Write This Story, where I give you a writing prompt and 10 words out of this book. I have all the pages numbered. And you have, if you're like me, about 600 words worth if you were really tiny, or under 1,000 words to write a flash fiction. The way I normally do this is I take 5-10 minutes, usually 5, to take those 10 words and figure out how to incorporate them into my story via an outline. And then I take 20 minutes to draft the story. I don't edit much because I do plan to go back through these stories all over again once I'm done drafting all of them. The slight edits I do make are when I am in the middle of writing or I am typing up my story and there's certain things I feel sound better. So what you get when I read you my story is the typed up version, if I did type it up before I recorded. This time I did. If this is your first time doing flash fiction, I recommend no time limit whatsoever. Outline if you normally outline, don't outline if you don't normally outline. Don't change anything about your writing style. Once you get comfortable doing flash fictions, that is when you can explore and use flash fiction to stretch your creativity brain and try new things instead of committing to a novel written a certain way. Try it as a flash fiction and get the hang of it, or learn you don't like it and find something different. Writing has that flexibility. Let me go ahead and give you episode 34's prompt. Circus performers are people too. The words to include are confrontation, clap, coach, zoom, tumbler, clumsy, digestion, letter, giant, and whip. Now, with this story, I really wanted to convey something that could be in any story, but it just happened to be circus people because I felt that conveyed the line, circus people are people too. If anyone can do it, then why not them too? So I decided to create a love story a little bit, but it was a love story asking for advice. So in my outline, the words that stood out to me first, the way I started going with this first was I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna have a relationship between a contortionist and a clown. You always have these stories where the strong man is dating somebody, and I was like, no, you know what? Let's give the clown somebody because I want them to be the established person emotionally to be in a relationship. And I'm really glad how I created that. But then I decided, what's my conflict? What am I gonna have? Well, how about the strong man is trying to figure out how to get somebody they're interested in? How is that gonna work? So I had this elaborate backstory that didn't even matter, but I was like, you know what? The contortionist is with the clown. And let's say the clown went to Juilliard, because a lot of people will have like, oh, they went to clown school or they're not established. Well, let's make them established. Why not? I mean, Alan Tudyk, who, and hopefully I pronounced that correctly, he voiced Hey Hey in Moana, but this man is like from Juilliard. He has been classically trained in acting and he voiced Hey Hey in Moana, and he did it well. Like, even to me, like Hey Hey and Groot are characters where you can say the same thing over and over, but you know how the meaning has changed, and I like that in acting. My point is, I wanted my clown to be classically trained, but that never made it in the story, and that's okay. That's one of those little hidden gems that me as an author, I know. And when I edit this, I might bring it back in. Who knows? To get the word started, I was like, all right, let's make the clown clumsy, like naturally clumsy, not just for his set. But I ended up changing that, so there's one word that changed. The strong man is watching the acrobats watch them zoom through the air. I have the clown coaching the strong man, so that's how I use the word, but I'm really glad how I ended up making the coaching more literal, if that makes sense. You'll see it when I read the story. Then the idea was, I figured the strong man would offer a tumbler to the acrobat as kind of a way to break the ice. The strongman ends up clapping at the acrobat's dismounts like aggressively, and that's actually how I ended up starting my story, even though it's later in the outline. For whip, I was going to have the clown like be defensive, like, I'm not whipped. My relationship is two autonomous people who choose each other. I was going to have it that way, but you know what? I ended up using whip in a description for the acrobats instead of a relationship reference. I have the strongman hates confrontation, but he needed help, so he sought out the clown. And for giant, I decided to say, oh, that's one giant problem, but I ended up not doing it in that way. And then I'm really proud of this line, and I think it's my favorite. So for letter, I wanted the line to the letter. Then I was like, that's a cliche. We need to change it up. So I said to the letter, number, and decimal place. And I just felt that made it even stronger to describe whatever it was I was going to describe, because I didn't know until I started writing. And then the last input line was doubt my own digestion. I ended up not using that. So digestion changed, giant changed, wit changed, clumsy changed. So 4 out of 10 changed. I'm happy with that. It works. Now is the time that I read you my version of episode 34. A large, muscular man stared at the acrobats. When they landed in the net, his clap echoed through the tent. The soaring duo churned in confusion to the sound, making the man turn on his heel. A clown practicing a clumsy unicycle act ran after the large man, by comparison to his lanky frame. Hey, Clive, wait up, the clown said. Clive churned, his face red and in a grimace. I don't know what I was thinking. I have no chance. He buried his face into his hands. I just get mesmerized when they zoom and whip through the air. They would never notice someone like me, Sam. Especially since I just came across as creepy, Clive said. Sam pulled out a baseball cap from his messenger bag that said Coach above the bill. You come to the right person, he said. Clive laughed. You confronted me, but I'll take the help. How did you get Liv to notice you? He hunched slightly to be on Sam's level. Sam sighed and grabbed the back of his neck. Well, I played into my strengths and made her laugh. She was doing her contortionist routine, so I decided to play up a beginner's contortion right next to her. Sam looked back into Clive's eyes. What makes you think Tara hasn't noticed you already? Sam asked. Clive's eyes widened as he pursed his lips. He let out a big sigh, keeping his eyes at the ground, and mumbled, I want David to notice me. Sam nodded with a smile. Well, that could be a giant problem, but with your brains and my... Sam glanced at his rail-like arms. Wait, reverse. With your brains and your muscles, we can give David a chance to be interested. Clive's brow furrowed. Would he like someone, he gestured below his belt, like me? Sam's smile grew. One way to find out. Next time he sticks a landing, offer him a tumbler of water with a compliment of how effortless he makes the flips look. That should at least break the ice. Sam glanced over his shoulder. They're still on break. How about you get a quick workout in before they start again? That'll help calm your nerves. Clive nodded and slapped Sam on the shoulder before heading to the weights. Liv walked up to Sam and circled her arms around his waist. Are you instilling confidence again? She said after giving him a peck. Sam smiled, looking into her eyes. That sums it up to the letter, number, and decimal. Easy digestion for what I've done, he said. Well, let's see if it worked, Liv said, inclining her head to David. David approached Clive as he finished his set, with the water tumbler in hand. It is adorable and I love it. I don't know how I created that whatsoever. So I lied. Apparently I did keep giant the same. I thought I changed that, but it's okay. I'm not going to hold myself to that too much. This story was really so much fun to write, and I kind of like how the conversation evolved, and it ended up being like a two guys conversation, which I don't think I've ever had two guys just talking to each other in any of my stories. Yes, me. You are up there. You want to? Okay. I don't think I've had, two guys talking, just like where a male author may not be used to two females talking. And I find it interesting because there's the whole idea of like women can have a conversation in a movie or book without talking about a man, or being around men or something like that. And I feel like I did the exact opposite, where it's men can have conversations about relationships, about talking together. It's healthy. It's okay. I really like that. Now, my least favorite on this, I realized as I was writing, my least favorite at this time is how many times I said smiled. Sam smiles. He nodded with a smile. And I felt like I did it a little bit too much. So going back and editing, I really need to fix that. But let me just go ahead and say my favorite line because I can't contain anymore. My favorite line was, that sums it up to the letter, number, and decimal. I'm proud of that. I'm happy. Anything that plays off a cliche, I think is great, and I am here for it. Just especially if it kind of like hoodwinks you a little bit and you don't expect it. I wish I had more to say about this story. I will say I will star this story. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I've kind of expanded upon this story a little bit in my head, and which means I'm going to star it, and it might become a longer story, maybe a short story, maybe a novella in the future. So we're going to see how that goes, especially if, oh my gosh, doing the contortionist and having Liv and Sam end up together, that would be interesting. I'd really enjoy that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Flash Fiction, and I hope you find enjoyment in your day, your week, your month, and your year. You know what? I'll let you press the button. Ready?
Yeah.
Press the red button.